Pre-cooked barbecue ribs from the store are one of my guilty pleasures. When they're discounted, I can't resist, especially when I know that I can make tasty broth from them with very little effort. Today, I'll show you my low effort, some might call it lazy, way of making barbecue pork ribs from broth like this. Now, understand, this is a method, not a recipe. There isn't an exact taste, color, number of ribs required, or even type of ribs required. All you need is some form of cooked pork rib. And I'm going to assume that it was seasoned and probably sauced at some time. So that's going to give you most of the taste, that and the actual pork rib flavor itself. So you can use nice homemade ones, some from a restaurant, or the cheap supermarket ones I'm using here. But like I said, guilty pleasure. Now, if you've got ribs like this, I'm simple. I just microwave them and sauce them. And, you can do it however you want. But the important part is get the meat off the bones, generally by eating them, because they're delicious. Then I put the bones in the freezer until I'm ready to use them. Today I am using 2 racks worth of bones, so about 24 bones plus the pieces of cartilage that came with them. This is not a requirement. You can use as few as 3. I probably wouldn't use less than 3. You can use more, whatever. Like I said, this is a method. It'll work for any number of bones that you want to use. You'll need a big pot with a lid or a slow cooker. You could probably do it in a pressure cooker or an Instapot too, but since I don't use those for this method, I'm not going to talk about that. Dump the rib bones into the pot or slow cooker. Fill the pot with water and cover the bones with a few inches of water. Be generous with the water. It will boil off. If you're using the slow cooker, then turn it on low and leave it for 8 to 12 hours-ish. Overnight is fine. If you're using the stove, then put the pot on the stove and turn it on medium low or low. Put the lid on. Now you just wait. Check on it every now and then. Turn it down to low when it is bubbling. And don't worry if you see bubbles or fat on the surface. It's fine. Fat is flavor. Just let it cook a few hours. I wait for the cartilage to give up a bit and make everything creamy and rich, and that makes my broth cloudy, which is fine. It still tastes delicious, and I think it's probably more nutritious that way too. Now, I never see scum on top, probably because all the bones are pre-cooked. But if you do see any nasty gray scum on top, just skim it off. Like I say, I've been using this method for years. It's really never come up. And that's about it for the next few hours. I usually let it go 4 to 8 hours and just poke at it now and then to see how it's coming along. Make sure it's not boiling over or anything. It's definitely done when it tastes good and the meat is easily coming off from the bones. I also like it when the cartilage kind of gives up, and there's going to be a color change when that happens. That's just to your liking. Stove off, let the broth cool a little bit, and pull out the bones with tongs. I try to avoid waste, so I put the bones in a strainer over the bowl to catch anything that drips off. Sometimes it's little, sometimes it's a lot, and then I pour that back into the broth. Let the broth cool a little bit so it's easier to handle, then strain out all of the solid particles. If you want a clearer broth, you can also use cheesecloth, but I usually don't bother with that. This is a lazy pork broth recipe after all. And that's it. We've made broth now with minimal effort. You can store it in containers in the fridge or freezer. You can can it according to your canner directions or use it immediately. My broth came out to 6 pints that I canned today. I could have boiled it down to condense it or thinned it out to make more. Sometimes the broth appears more brown. Today it was pale, and it's delicious and great stuff.
In addition to the 6 pints, I also have probably about a cup more of pork broth in the fridge that I will either make rice with or I might put in ramen noodles. Possibilities are endless. Yes, broth is cloudy. I don't care. It is delicious. It is nutritious. All of that cloudy stuff is just liquid fats and cartilage that are adding taste and nutrition. This is going to taste just as good as any of the beautiful restaurant clear broths. It's gonna look just fine in a ramen. Will not be a beautiful pitanscio, but you know what? It's gonna be tasty, and if I'm gonna drop a slice of American cheese or other things in it, then you can't tell anyway. I can make baked beans maybe, or some soup or rice with this broth. It will be delicious, and no one will know that my broth is cloudy or that I didn't spend hours straining and pulling out the fats or anything else. They keep saying fat is flavor, so why would I take that out? And well, the broth did take hours. I didn't actually have to sit there slaving over it. I occasionally went and poked at the bones with my tongs now and then, or turned the stove up and down. But really, this is the lazy, low effort, easy pork rib broth. I didn't even add any seasonings because seasoning's already there. There's in the dry rub and the barbecue sauce that I ate it with. Thanks for joining me on Make Men Grow for my low effort, lazy barbecue pork rib broth. Like and subscribe for more content like this. See you next time.